Okay. So, hello guys. My name is Max Brown. I'm a intern at Two Days for the summer of 2020, and I'm here with Clint Often. He is the assistant AD at the University of Mary Washington, and he heads communication, sports information, and marketing. So to get right into it, Clint, what does a day in your life look like during the school year?
Very busy, very early start and very late finish.
Okay.
Usually I'm a rare bird in this field in that I'm a morning person. So I usually come in and start out real early. On game days, which are most days, with 20 sports here at Mary Washington, I'll come in and start getting ready for the day. Typically, if we have a game on Wednesday, the preparation begins days before that, reaching out to our opponents to get their rosters for game programs, for live statistics, scheduling, well in advance. I'm working on our fall schedules right now, all the links for live video and what games we stream, the live stats links for people that want to watch those. And then just, having those links available for when we do publish on game day. Typically in the mornings, I'll do a game day social media blast with the links for the video and the live stream and any other things that are going on. If it's a special thing where they're selling tickets, against a D1 opponent or something like that. That's typically a morning thing. The actual game programs I'll do a day or two in advance. And then, when we get to game time, I typically arrive at the venues about an hour before the game, to set everything up, set up the streaming camera if I need to, the computers, and then, the scoreboards and all that stuff as well. So there's definitely a lot of organization involved, and a lot of spinning plates at the same time, especially if we have a few things going on at once.
Right.
After the games, I typically come back to my office and write up all the game summaries of the games. And if we're away, obviously now I can do that from home, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'll typically, if we're away, I'll watch the games just to get a sense of, how the action took place, to, write a better press release at the end. And then I will send out the results on social media, on our website. I usually make a group list of all the hometown media of all of our student athletes by team. So then if after a field hockey game, say, I'll send it out to the field hockey media list. So those kids' hometown papers are at least aware of it. And we sometimes get, some features that way that, somebody in Roanoke will say, oh, wow, this kid's really doing well. So we can kind of get some more mileage that way. That's a typical day. If I have a photographer, then I will read through, the action photos from the games that day to post with the stories as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, that sounds like a lot of work, and it seems like you got, you said a lot of plates in the air at once. So it's pretty cool. Moving on from that, how do you set goals for yourself in your field?
Traditionally here at Mary Washington, we've been on the lower end of the scale of help. There are a lot of schools in the state our size that have a lot more people on staff that are full time. It's just been me since COVID. Unfortunately, we were up to a 3-person staff, which was amazing before COVID hit. And since we came back from COVID, it's just been me, which has been really rough. But I'm happy to say I do have a new part-time assistant coming on board this fall, and I'm sure he's going to help out a lot. My goal's always been to make it look like we have 3 or 4 full-time people as well. To be as good as those schools. I mean, I was a college athlete. I played soccer 1 year and lost more games in 1 year than I did in the 4 years of high school. So, when you don't win a lot, soccer involves a lot of running. So I became a baseball player after that. But I've always been very competitive that way. And also, when I played baseball in college, which is kind of a unique perspective, I think, which has really helped me. I played at a Division II school, and we played at a minor league stadium about a half hour from campus.
Okay.
which sounds really impressive, but nobody really cared or came. And on campus, it was like we
Yeah.
didn't exist, so I
Right.
always felt like, wow, it's like, well, we're out here playing and nobody cares. So
Hmm.
that was always something in the back of my head that, I want every kid who goes here to have a better experience than that. So I do all I can that way.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think, yeah, tying that personal piece in really shows how dedicated you are to, getting these kids um, just to be seen in their sports. It's tough sometimes at D3 at a smaller school to like actually get that out into the press, like you said.
Sure, yeah, and the media, it's totally different now with social media
Yeah.
and the websites, starting with the websites, because folks who want to know the news know where to get it, which is
Right.
great. And we get followers and things like that. But actually getting it to the media, they're always maybe a little more reluctant, depending on. Fredericksburg's been great because there's no Division I school across the street. So,
True.
the
Yeah.
college beat is us locally, which is cool. But yeah, the media's been reticent like that sometimes, but with the world of technology we're in, all the folks that are aware of us can find everything they want to know and then some. It's
Right.
just it's kind of transitioned from how can we get the information out to how can we make people aware of us so they
Okay.
can follow us themselves.
Yeah. Perfect. Moving on from that, how do you develop a marketing plan at UMW?
It's again, since COVID, everything's kind of just been, stick your finger in the leak.
Okay.
But you know, we have here an amazing history, um, going back to the 80s, really, when everything kind of went Division III. Mary Washington just went co-ed in the early 70s.
Yeah.
And when Ed Hegman was hired here as the first athletic director, the number of sports tripled. They developed the battleground complex. So really, in that era, we were really ahead of the curve, uh,
Hmm.
with recruiting, with everything.
Yeah.
And so we have really a strong history going back, 30, 40 years, which is something that I've always tried to not only tie in with those alums because it keeps them involved,
Hmm.
but it's also a really proud speaking point. I mean,
Yeah.
I came here in '96 and I've hosted over 50 NCAA tournament events. I
Wow.
mean, we've hosted, 5 national championships in a couple different sports. So the history piece for me has always been a big thing in the marketing because it shows a commitment dating back decades. And
Right.
Mary Washington was also really interesting because Coach Hegman was not only the athletic director, he was also the women's tennis coach who won 3 national championships. So
Yeah.
he always had a perspective of, you know, not that everything is equal, but we're not going to tier our sports where these sports get this and these sports get
Hmm.
less. He always tried to make everything equal, which I think benefited all 23 sports at the time.
Yeah.
That people cared about field hockey and volleyball and not just football.
Hmm.
So I always thought that's been a big thing. And one of the things I did over COVID, actually, I was thinking, okay, well, I didn't know how long it was going to be, but I guess the benefit of being here forever and never throwing anything away, I have files and files, cabinets full of archive stuff. So if you look on our website, most schools' archives go back 10, 15 years, of our size, but a lot of ours go back to the beginning, back in the 70s. Um,
Wow.
and that was one thing that we did over COVID was go back and type in soccer box scores from 1977. So it was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
I'm a historian anyway. I love that stuff. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And I think, yeah, tying in the history, especially in Fredericksburg being a
Right.
historical time as it is, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You already touched on it earlier, but how do you plan to use social media to market these D3 students?
Well, I'd like to do more, and hopefully having another set of hands here, we'll be able to get it back. I learned all about Instagram during
Okay.
COVID. I wasn't much of an Instagram guy.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see the way the trends go because I can track everything we do. I can put out the same release on, primarily right now we use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I know TikTok is coming.
Yeah.
That's
Uh-huh.
a part of the business. I mean, but it's funny that the same release gets such different uh, hits and looks depending on the audience.
Yeah.
Facebook is tending to be the parents now, an older generation. The kids aren't too much into Facebook anymore. I typically use that for like awards, major things that happen in the department. It's not, I don't flood people's Facebook with, 11 game stories on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Um, that Twitter's kind of my news feed. That's where we've been sending out the Twitter, and then I send it over to Instagram too. So um, the kids that are current student athletes and their age, the number for Instagram is skyrocketing. The
Yeah.
number of followers on Twitter's kind of stays about the same, and Facebook's kind of trailing off. So that's what I've seen with it. It's it's great. You can in my position when I got here 26 years ago, you had to rely on the media to let people know about. I mean,
Right.
when I joke about it, when I got hired, I told Coach Hagan, I know about all the sports, the stats, the rules. I'm very organized. But this internet thing, I don't know too much about it. This is 1996,
Right.
and his reply to me was, "Well, we only update it once a year, so you'll figure it out." So that's how much my job has changed in 26 years.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. It's really cool to think about. Yeah. Moving on, what you already touched on it as well, but what makes marketing and communications difficult at a D3 school?
Well, obviously, your audience is going to be smaller.
Hmm.
And that's why I kind of tied in earlier about, having as many alumni as involved as possible. Not only as a point of pride for them, but it also helps get the word out. Currently we have a women's basketball player whose aunt was an All-American women's soccer and basketball player here back in the 90s.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like, obviously she knew about Mary Washington, but
Hmm.
there may be others who, had an older relative or something like that. Um, you know, the audience is smaller and you have to keep being creative or else people would stop looking. So
Yeah.
it's technology is, I'm the crusty old man in the room, but I still love it. I mean, people say, how can you do the same thing for 26 years? Well, as I just said, it's completely different. I mean,
Right.
there was a time when I would stand on the sidelines of a soccer game and do a radio play-by-play into my cell phone, and
Wow.
and then video came along. We were one of the first with audio, and then the video came along, and it just keeps going and going, um, which is exciting. It's not
Yeah.
like it's never stagnant. There's always something new to learn or improve on. So
Sure. Yeah, that's really cool. I think just thinking back before even the video, you doing play by play, that shows how much the job has changed and how
yeah,
different it's become.
my first year, like when I said my first year when I came in for the internet and stuff, I came in one weekend and taught myself HTML code, and that was our website for a good 5 6 years.
Wow.
And then until the technology got beyond me with that, so we
Yeah.
kind of turned that over to the pros at that point. But that was just an evolving field at the time too. So
Awesome. Yeah. So as you move on, what demographics do you look to market to? Like what location and what age kids are you looking to market to?
well, obviously, our main slogan here, at the university is recruiting and retention and student athlete experience. So, you'd mentioned, here at the office, there used to be a photo shoot backdrop. We're moving things over to our convergence center now to make everything look a little more state of the art. But we're always targeting potential recruits. I mean, I don't actually go out on the road like a coach and recruit all the time, but my having a consistent, fresh, really sharp looking media platform, is very important because, folks your age and a little younger that are looking to come to college, um, they don't want to look at something that looks old and stale and it's, the field hockey team puts this out and it looks like this, and this team has something different. Consistency and freshness really are the key. especially for, young eyes that are possibly looking to go to school here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Social media is kind of the main way that kids are reaching out to schools of just doing their research. So I think, yeah, having consistent platforms is huge.
Yeah, and a lot of kids, whether they're being recruited actively or not, the school might not admit to this, but a lot of kids that come here, especially the athletes, their first contact with Mary Washington is through a social media post from athletics or from a team that they may be interested in. So they do the initial legwork, but that first thing they see is probably coming from this office, which is pretty heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's huge. So moving on sort of into this NIL space that's been huge and from a lot of D1 athletes. How does NIL affect D3 athletes? Do we have anything in place to sort of help D3 athletes get into this space?
Yeah, we have a form on the web, and the NCAA has a lot of resources and toolkits for that. It's a really interesting thing to watch. I was hearing about, obviously Arch Campbell or Arch Manning, I'm sorry, going to Texas last week, and
Yeah,
it's really interesting because you have the big time D1 quarterback athletes, but then you have also other kids who are getting huge amounts of money just because they're social media influencers and they have a
right.
500,000 followers. So,
Mhm.
there's no real reason why a student athlete at a Division III school couldn't also have that, develop that sort of following for something completely outside of athletics.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to follow. There aren't really any Division III, as you say, that have really been able to take advantage of that at a level that's mind blowing. But it's certainly possible a kid could come along and have tons and tons of followers online, and obviously businesses would want to tie on to that. I mean, if John after the soccer game said, and tells his 500,000 followers, wow, what a great win over whatever, we'll say Christopher Newport.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go to Jersey Mike's and have a sub, and then 500. I mean, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been crazy. I've seen, yeah, I've seen some D3 athletes as well with social media accounts, like with in the thousands, tens of thousands of followers, like getting some deals. So I think it's really a up and coming area.
Yeah, and I
So
think,
just
and I think kids, I think it's great. I mean,
yeah,
especially at this level. I mean, obviously at the Division I level, there are, tons of athletic scholarships, but at this level, hey, every little bit can help, I mean, if being legally bound not to give athletic scholarships, well, you know, if you're a student athlete and you're in season and you're, practicing and playing games and you don't have the ability to have that part-time job on the side, especially during your season, you know, why not? I think it's great.
yeah. And then just to end it out on a fun note, what has been your favorite sports memory at UMW so far?
Oh man. I, you're lucky because I actually was just inducted into our Hall of Fame last week. And actually a
Wow.
part of my script was actually moments that I remembered. So I'll try and remember a few of those.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah, it's rare for folks in our field to get that. So I felt very honored
Yeah.
because of what we do is typically behind the scenes. But
Mhm.
I remember my second year here, we hosted we made it to the NCAAs in men's soccer, and made it through regionals and then played in the quarterfinal. And that was all the way. We played in the national quarterfinals out in California and won. And we found out on Monday morning that we were going to host the Final Four for Division III men's soccer that weekend. And
Wow.
one of the schools was a religious school that wouldn't play on Sunday. So we actually played the games on Friday and Saturday with the banquet on Thursday, which happened to be Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So I
Wow.
hosted a Final Four with 3 days notice on Thanksgiving. That was
Wow.
pretty wild. Um, we had a field hockey player named Jess Morris back in about 2001. break our school record for most goals in a game and most points in a game against #1 ranked and undefeated Salisbury at our place. So they had given up like 6 goals in 9 games, and she was responsible for 6 goals in one game
Wow,
against the
that's
best team
crazy.
in the country. So that was wild.
Yeah.
Women's basketball making the Final Four was amazing, and it was in Springfield, Massachusetts, and the dinner was at the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Wow.
We beat VMI in men's basketball one season at VMI. It was Division I, and
Wow.
we came back and from the restaurant. So every time it came up on the ticker on ESPN that we had beaten them, we had a big cheer. So
Wow, that's very cool.
that's just a few. There's way too many to mention. But.
Right. Yeah, I think after, as long as the career you've had, you're going to see some amazing stuff. And it sounds like you've had some great experiences.
Yeah, definitely. And, the relationships you build with students, it's just so random. But like, we had a girl on a women's lacrosse Final Four team, her tradition was she would just come up and hand me her necklace before every game because she didn't want to break it or lose it. So I was the keeper of the necklace. We had a basketball player who was just an amazing shooter. The last time that the men's basketball team went to NCAAs, and he would just come over to me and he would fist bump everybody, and when he'd get to me, he'd just stick his head down and I'd flip his light switch on. That was like our little deal. So turning on his light switch was inevitable.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for hopping on with me, though. I think a lot of this stuff is going to help kids in the recruiting realm just sort of understand the behind the scenes stuff. So I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
Sure. And if I could say, we were talking a little bit earlier, I've been in that position before too, and don't be afraid to ask anybody and everybody at this point about, any questions you may have about the college experience or college athletics. There are a lot of great people out there that would be, glad to help you along the way. So please don't be afraid to ask. Well, it was great talking to you, Max. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for hopping on with me.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
See you.